Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X-22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 826B, and today's date is November 24th, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. NATO using Turkey to provoke Russia by downing a jet to start the war. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, Pew has just come out with a new national survey, and this is coming from the Pew Research Center, and it reveals how distrustful the American public feels about the media. Right now, 65% say the national news media impacts the country in a negative way. Maybe because the corporate media is lying to the public. They're not doing any investigative reporting. They're not really digging for facts. And they're following the script from the government. Yes, this would pose a problem. And to go further, Americans simply do not trust the federal government. Only 19% believe they can trust the government in Washington to do the right thing. Well, again, we have to go back to, are they telling us the truth? Are they working in the best interest of the people? And what we found out from all our research is that they're working in the best interest of corporations, central banks, special lobbyist groups, and not the American people. And this is why you see the American people not trusting the federal government right now. For example, there's a bill that's being introduced that would view corporate crimes as an honest mistake. Wealthy conservatives are pushing a bill that would excuse corporate leaders from financial fraud, environmental pollution, and other crimes that America's greatest criminals deem simply reckless or negligent. The Heritage Foundation attempts to rationalize saying someone who simply has an accident by being slightly careless can hardly be said to have acted with a guilty mind. Well, if you want to take that rationale, you can apply it to pretty much everything, and everyone will not commit any type of crime. Basically, what they're doing right now, we are melded into a fascist government, where corporate and government melds into one, and they protect each other, and they do things in the best interest for each other. And this is what we're seeing at this point. Now, to take this a step further, we are definitely seeing that everything that comes out of the government at this point is not a benefit to the people. They are not a benefit to the people. Look at Affordable Care Act. Look at the Patriot Act. Look at the USA Freedom Act. Look at everything they push out there. Whatever the titles say, they are the opposite. And we can see that the governments throughout the world, here in the United States, they are trying to get the people together and control them. And they want to make sure that they are spying on each other. So right now in New York, what we're seeing is, since the Paris attacks, New York is taking its fight with terrorism to a new level. They created an app. If you see something, send something. Take pictures of it and send it into the authorities. Well, I mean, it sounds like a good idea, except people are going to be taking pictures of pretty much anything, and the investigators are going to be spending all their time running around doing everything except stopping terrorism. And that's if you really believe there are terrorists running around in this country, which I do not. I believe these are all government-sponsored false flag events. Do I believe there are terrorists out there? Yes, but the ones that we're seeing, they're backed up by governments. So basically what they're doing is basically creating this app, and they want people to go out and take pictures and send it in for different people all around New York City. It was almost like the law they passed where they said, listen, we'll give you a $500 reward if you think someone has an illegal gun, and we'll start the investigation. This is the same type of thing. And Nazi Germany actually used this, where they had people blowing the whistle on others who pretty much are against the government, who don't agree with the government. And I noticed at their promotional advertisement for this new app, they show a truck with, toxic material, propane gas, and poison, which, to me, this could be anything. And this could be part of a company. This is their job. They supply propane gas and they clean up toxic material. I mean, this makes no sense whatsoever, but again, they want the people to tell on each other. Now, the White House is pushing the idea of gun control this Thanksgiving. The Obama administration wants Americans to talk about why Congress won't pass more gun control. Well, I'm going to turn this around and say everyone should be talking about why we need a weapon this Thanksgiving. Because they're trying to get everyone to talk about gun control, where basically we have the Second Amendment, and it allows us to have weapons. They're trying to push everyone this Thanksgiving to start a debate inside the families. And if you're going to start a debate, make sure you have the facts of why people need to keep weapons, not give up their weapons. Now, Josh Earnest was talking about enhanced national security. And he's insisting that since we have all this terror going on, and they mentioned this once before, where they wanted to take the terror list, and anyone that's on this terror list, they cannot own a weapon. Now, of course, we know terrorists, they don't go to a store, they don't get fingerprinted, they don't go through the system to get their weapons. They get it on the black market. They get military weapons, as we've seen across the world, if you believe the government's official stories. But the problem with this is that their list, you don't know how you get on it, you don't know how you get off of it, and they can just throw anybody on this list. And this is a problem. And there is a message to these government officials about taking away our freedom of speech, taking away our right to own a weapon, taking away our rights of privacy and where they can't search you without a warrant. Government employees need to remember, and my wife reminded me of this because she's a very smart woman, that government is a privilege. It is not a right. We, the people, gave them this privilege to be in office. This privilege can be taken away. They need to remind themselves of this, that this is not their right to go along with corporate interest, foreign government interests, central bank interests. They need to remember this is a privilege where the people put them into office, and that privilege can be revoked at any time. Something they need to remember. Now, out in Kiev, the power was shut down in Crimea. And Ukraine, right now, is not repairing the sabotaged power lines. Now, there is certain areas that are back up on emergency power, but there is no practical repair work going on right now. Extremists will not allow workers to repair the damaged power stations. And it's strange at this time that the authorities in Ukraine cannot provide access to the energy facilities. So the question is, why did the power go out? What are they preparing for? And what is the reason for this? Are they getting ready for a major offensive? Most likely, yes. Now, the Donetsk and Lugansk people, they decided that they're going to have to suspend coal deliveries to the rest of Ukraine because they're having talks discussing the delivery, the payment, and they're saying Ukraine right now basically are not really talking with them. The talks have come to a dead end, and they're saying that Kiev doesn't even want to go further with them. And they're saying it's not even worth it at this time, so they're just going to suspend all deliveries to that area. And this concerns me right now because what we're seeing is a power outage in Crimea. The extremists will not let anyone repair the power lines. We understand the U.S. and other foreign countries are in Ukraine training the National Guard, the armed forces, and special op teams. And they've started shelling the Donetsk-Lugansk area, and the OSCE has proven and shown facts that yes, Kiev is the one doing this. And right now they decided to break off and not have talks anymore with the Donetsk area. Secondly, we see that the Minsk II ceasefire agreement expires the end of this year. And we understand at this point that Russia is in Syria destroying the Islamic State, which basically hurts the United States and their proxy army. And I'm thinking right now that because of this, the U.S. is now ready to start something in Ukraine and bring this war to all fronts. It looks like things are really starting to escalate, and they're preparing for something very, very major at this time. Now, Iran is going to start receiving their delivery of the Russian S-300 anti-missile rocket system. They're saying it has already started, and they're receiving the missiles. Of course, Washington, Israel, they're not happy with this whatsoever. And again, these are defensive missile system. And every time the U.S. comes out and says something about a different country, where they always say they have the right to defend themselves, well, so does Iran. Now, what we are seeing at this point, and we've mentioned this many times, the U.S. is backed into a corner. Russia is destroying the proxy army of the United States, which is the Islamic State, and Al-Qaeda, and al-Nusra, and every other terrorist organization inside Syria. Basically, they're funded, they're paid for, they supply them with military assets, and they're using them all to get Assad. So basically, Turkey decided to basically shoot down a Russian jet. They took it out because they said that the Russian jet flew into Turkish airspace. And then the pilot ejected from the plane, and basically on the ground you see the Islamic State and other terrorist organization. They were basically firing at the person parachuting. Now there's two different videos out there. One shows them shooting at someone that's in the sky, but they're coming down with a white parachute. Then there's another video showing them shooting, and the person coming down is in a red parachute. So we have two conflicting videos right now, which makes no sense. So what happened here? Well, Turkey decided, and they've given Russia warnings before, that do not come near our airspace, do not cross over the border. And the Russian Su-24, as far as Turkey is saying, crossed into the border and violated its airspace. And then we see that a Russian helicopter was sent to rescue the pilot, and the Syrian opposition said they shot it down using a TOW missile, which is supplied by the United States. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing the United States and Turkey now provoke Russia. This is what they are pushing for right now. They are pushing for a war, and they're doing whatever they possibly can to provoke Russia into doing something. So something right now doesn't make sense. Because if you think of this and you use common sense, Russia didn't realize where they were flying, and let's say they did maneuver into Turkish airspace. The first reaction is to down a plane. You know the Russian plane is not there to attack. You know from the radar feed that it was bombing inside of Syria. There could have been a warning. There could have been maybe shots fired around the plane to give a warning. But normally this happens quite often, where planes go into different area. So, did Russia fly into Turkish airspace? Well, we have to remember one thing here. Back on October 5th, Turkey intercepted a Russian jet, which said they violated its airspace. And this was a setup for what happened today. And Turkey said that the F-16 jets had intercepted the Russian fighter, which violated the Turkish airspace, and they'd given them a warning. But what the corporate media kind of leaves out of this whole thing is that basically Turkey extended its borders by 5 miles, setting up a safe zone area. Now, they moved their borders into Syria. And basically, the Russians who were flying around were flying throughout Syria. So, what we are seeing right now is that Turkey decided to go ahead with the okay from the U.S. to fire at this plane and bring it down. So on that October 5th date, the U.S. military official suggested the incident had come close to sparking an armed confrontation. And when you read the report, he said the Russian aircraft had violated Turkish space by 5 miles, and that the Turkish jets had scrambled, but the Russian aircraft had returned to Syrian airspace. Remember, they extended their borders. So the Turkish security official said he could not confirm the account whatsoever, but the U.S. is saying that yes, this did happen. So basically, the U.S. was kind of pushing Turkey in this direction. And they were claiming that their airspace was violated. So what we are seeing right now is that the U.S. was directing Turkey to go after a Russian jet if it flew anywhere in that 5-mile safe zone. Now, this area is still inside Syria. And the Russian Defense Ministry put out a video, the actual radar following the Su-24. And when you look at the radar information, and remember, Turkey didn't put out radar, the U.S. did not put out radar, Russia is putting out the radar, and when you follow it along, the Su-24 never entered Turkey, according to the borders that they had before Turkey moved them 5 miles into Syria. So President Putin is saying that this is a stab in the back. And will Putin go ahead and start a war over this? No, he is not. He is not going to push this. Of course, Russia is upset about this. And basically, they're taking precautions right now. They're upping their security. And at this point, they decided to basically stop all military activity working with the Turkish government. And going forward, this is going to be a problem. Now, we understand, if we believe the Turkish official story and the U.S. official story, and if we go with that line of thought that, oh, Russia jet, they flew into this area and they, accessed Turkish airspace. But let's think about this for a second logically. Turkey has been bombing the PKK in North Iraq without the permission of the Iraqi government. Did they shoot down the Turkish plane? No. Israel regularly violates the airspace of Lebanon and Syria, and actually bombs Syria. Have their planes been shot down? No. U.S., France, Britain, Jordan, they all violate Syrian airspace. Under the pretense, of course, of getting terrorism. But does Syria come and shoot their planes down? No. This was extreme. This was uncalled for. And it was used, of course, for many different agendas. One was to provoke Russia. The other one, if we remember, Turkey got rid of the Patriot air defense system. And this could be part of the agenda to have them bring the system back into the country. But we can see the main objective was to provoke Russia at this point. So the flight data was released by Russia, and it shows that the Su-24 never entered Turkey airspace and was attacked while performing legitimate maneuvers over Syria. And Putin right now is out there saying that this goes far beyond what Turkey should be doing. They took the side of the Islamic State and they were protecting them. This is why they shot down the plane. I mean, he said Turkey is behaving as if Russia shot down its own plane. He says there is no way that the Russian plane threatened Turkey in any manner whatsoever. Remember, the U.S. and Russia signed an accord with the U.S. to avoid air incidents just like this. And Putin is out there saying, listen, oil from the Islamic State is being shipped to Turkey, and Turkey then goes ahead and sells it. They're basically working with the Islamic State. They get military support from the U.S., they get military support from Turkey, and from the other Middle Eastern countries. They're all supporting terrorism at this point. So basically, Putin is out there saying Turkey now supports the Islamic State, because that's really what they're doing. They were saving their armed forces on the ground. Because as we know, Russia has been bombing this entire area, pushing the proxy army back, and they're losing the battle. And as we move forward here, we're going to see the provocations continue and get worse as we go on. So NATO called an emergency meeting, and they wanted to look at the events. They're saying that everyone should calm down at this point. Of course, they're absolutely loving this point of it because they brought down a Russian plane. And basically, you're going to know that they're going to try to push this a little bit at a time to try to get the war started. Paul Craig Roberts is out there saying that the Turkey's unprovoked shoot-down of Russian military aircraft over Syria raises interesting questions. It seems unlikely that the Turkish government would commit an act of war against a much more powerful neighbor unless Washington had cleared the attack. Well, let me just say, everything leading up to this, they most likely did. And now Obama is saying that the moderate Syrian rebels include all the terrorist groups. Well, this is kind of ridiculous because they're terrorists. And we knew they included all the terrorist groups. We knew from the past that they were all working together. There was no such thing as all these separate groups. They're all one and the same, all being funded by the same thing. They're all getting the weapons from the same area. And Russia and Iran are saying, listen, they will oppose any attempt to externally remove Assad. The only way Assad can be removed is by the people voting. Now, we understand that the United States is trying to convince everyone that they're going after the oil tankers. They dropped the leaflets on the ground, warning the drivers to get out of the truck. Why would they do this at this point? Makes no sense unless they're trying to save their proxy army. And something else very interesting happened. The U.S. military intended to destroy all the trucks. But what happened was they ran out of ammunition. And they just couldn't get to all of them. They destroyed some of them, but they just couldn't get to all of them because they ran out of ammunition. Wait, so they're trying to tell us, and this is coming from the Army Colonel Stephen Warren, they're trying to tell us that they were set up to do this run to destroy the convoy of tankers. They knew how many there were, and they just didn't have enough ammunition. Does that make any sense? Absolutely not. Now, we understand the United States government central bankers, they're preparing for a major false flag event. And right now, the nation's biological terrorism defense system, a 1 billion network of air samplers in cities across the country, does not work according to the Government Accountability Office. The GAO report challenges the Department Central's claim about the BioWatch. And they're saying from this 100-page document that this BioWatch system just does not work. So we are open now to any type of biological weapon. This is all being prepped for the main event. This is what we're seeing right now. And leading up to this main event, because first they have to show that the economy is collapsing from an outside source. And we've already seen the events unfold in Paris. We see lockdown in Belgium. We see the forces in France going after many different areas, locking down the system. And I wouldn't be surprised if this holiday season there is a cyber attack on retailers and maybe financial institutions. Because there's a strange warning out there that U.S. retailers now are hunting for a malware which was placed into their system dubbed ModPOS, M-O-D-P-O-S, saying that it could bring down the entire retail system, including hospitality companies, payment card processors, and each company is looking for this malware during the holiday season. This would be a perfect event to explain away why this holiday season was a complete disaster, because they have to show that another group or country caused the economic collapse. And it seems like we're leading into this right now. And then we get the word that the State Department issued a worldwide travel alert due to increased terrorist threats. We haven't seen anything like this since December of 2014. And they're going to keep this alert alive for the next 3 months. So what are we seeing here right now? And the alert expires, by the way, on February 24th, 2016. So what are we seeing right now? We're seeing a war being pushed in Ukraine. There's a blackout in Crimea. The power stations are not being repaired. We see they're getting ready for a major offensive. We see Russia in Syria right now destroying the Islamic State. Turkey decided to protect the Islamic State by shooting down a Russian jet, and they wanted to provoke Russia by the go-ahead from the U.S. government. We see there's terror everywhere. There's a malware now in the retail system that might bring down the retail system during the holiday season. And we have this State Department worldwide travel alert, which will expire February 24th. And the State Department is saying that all citizens should, watch where they are, avoid crowds, and they might be at risk of traveling. All of this happening all at the same time as the economy is completely falling apart and crashing. What we are going to see is a multiple event situation which is going to be so horrific, something we haven't seen ever in the history of the world, to bring us into the next world war. This is where we are headed at this point, and you need to be prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.